Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and as you can see, we are here to break down how the Washington Commanders outsmarted the entire NFL. Do we have the 2024 NFL Draft's biggest steal, man? It's definitely starting to look like it. Adam Peters is a pure genius. We're not even talking about the Marshawn Lattimore trade. We're not even talking about Jaden Daniels or Johnny Newton or Mike Sanders steal. We're talking about the biggest steal in the 2024 NFL Draft. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video, man. And y'all already know, make sure y'all pull up for this upcoming game against the Steelers. They've been talking a little crazy. I have a Steelers fan friend. They are really confident that they were gonna win this game, especially since Marshawn Lattimore is not playing in it. But I'm still confident we're gonna win. I'm gonna live stream the entire thing, play-by-play analysis, breaking down everything and all of that type of stuff. So make sure you pull up for that. And without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. Alright, so story time. I want you to think back to the day before the 2024 NFL Draft, man. As Commanders fans, or even as Commanders coaches and front office members and decision makers, we already had a great idea of, like, first of all, what position we were going to take second overall, and then even beyond that, which quarterback we were going to take. So we, like, franchise quarterback wise, were already good and confident before the draft even started who we were going to walk away with, and the fact that they probably would turn out to be a good quarterback. Now, of course, Jaden Daniels exceeded all expectations that anybody had laid out for him, but still, even then, going into the draft, we kind of expected we're more than likely going to take a quarterback, and then from that, well, 100% we were taking quarterback, and then out of the quarterbacks, we were more than likely taking Jaden Daniels, but then beyond that, it was about, how about our other needs? Well, we needed cornerback after we took quarterback, of course. We needed wide receiver. We needed linebacker. We needed edge rusher. And most importantly, how about a left tackle? I would argue that was our biggest need after quarterback, especially since we planned on taking a franchise quarterback. We already knew that we couldn't send our franchise quarterback out there to the Wolves in his rookie season, going from college to the NFL. That transition is already crazy. But then on top of that, without a franchise left tackle to protect his blind side, to make sure he's good to go, to keep him healthy, I mean, that would almost be wasting away the franchise quarterback selection, the number 2 overall draft pick, if you don't find him a tackle to keep him safe, especially on that left side. Positional value: quarterback, edge rusher, left tackle, and then it's probably a big gap everybody else. It's plain and simple. It's the hierarchy of the entire sport. Getting a quarterback, great. But what are you going to do with that quarterback if he doesn't have his, at least a dependable left tackle? And we didn't already have one on roster that we could just go out there and start with. I like Cornelius Lucas, but he should not be a starting left tackle that you assume is going to start going into a season. Now, he can split snaps with a starting left tackle, with a franchise left tackle. He can maybe even be a backup swing tackle that can fill in if there's an injury. But Cornelius Lucas should not be your week 1 starting left tackle that's going to play every single snap. That's not the way to go. So, after we take Jaden Daniels, we're watching the draft continue, and it's tackle after tackle after tackle getting taken. I'm starting to get impatient. I mean, Joe Alt went 5th overall. J.C. Latham went 7th overall. Olu Fashanu went 11th overall. Then Talise Fuaga went 14th. And then, you know, at least for those, that was pretty much expected. I didn't think we had much of a chance of getting those guys, or at least any guy that was drafted within like the first 14 picks. I didn't expect us to ever trade up that far. But yeah, generally, like Joe Alt, J.C. Latham, Olu Fashanu, already knew going into the draft we were not going to have a chance at those guys, and I knew we more than likely wouldn't have a chance at Talise Fuaga. And again, after we took Jaden Daniels 2nd overall, our next pick, it was early in the 2nd round, but still a 2nd round pick. We did not have a mid-first round pick to take a tackle immediately after that. We just didn't have the ammo for that. But then I was looking around and seeing even more tackles that were still available that I was personally willing to trade back up into the 1st round to get, even if it took putting together a couple of 2nd and 3rd round picks to do what you got to do. Like, how about my Georgia dog Amarius Mims with the ridiculous high ceiling, like the prototypical made in the lab offensive tackle ceiling. Now, granted, Hindsight's 2020 right now. He's not having a good season at all for the Bengals right now. We abused him, and I think he will end up becoming better and becoming the great tackle that I thought. It's just going to happen way slower than I thought. He is pretty raw. Even coming out of the draft, he was pretty raw even for Georgia, but it's definitely, he's doing worse than what I expected, but I still believe ultimately he'll be a great tackle. But I was rooting for, trade up for the high ceiling guy, the guy that has like future all-pro written all over him. It may not necessarily be his rookie season. Again, he's struggling this season, but eventually he'll show you why he could potentially be like the next Jordan Mailata, raw tackle turned into elite talent. Or how about Troy Fautanu with his versatility? Or maybe Tyler Guyton with his ceiling as well. But then as time goes by, we see that the Commanders do not end up trading back up into the first round for a left tackle at all. But it was reported, though, later on that the Commanders tried to do it, but Adam Peters didn't like how teams were basically charging them. Like, they were trying to tax us because they knew we were desperate for a left tackle after we just took a franchise quarterback second overall early in the draft. And then even then at that moment when I heard about that and we still didn't have a left tackle yet at the time, I was happy that Adam Peters did not fold. I didn't know we were going to do at left tackle, but I was very happy and impressed with the fact that our general manager, Adam Peters, did not allow a team to take advantage of us like that in a time when we really needed a left tackle and we were willing to probably give up more than we usually did. Teams were trying to tax us and ask for way more than they normally would, and I'm so happy that Adam Peters did not bite on that. Thank you very much. Salute to our Adam Peters, our general manager, for staying 10 tones down and not letting other NFL teams, because he is the rookie general manager. This is his first time being an official general manager for an entire team himself, and I'm pretty sure other NFL GMs and decision makers tried to take advantage of that, on top of the fact that we were desperate for a left tackle, especially after we just took a franchise quarterback second overall. They know we wanted to protect them in the worst way, but thank you, Adam Peters, for not folding. But at the end of the day, we ended up going through the entire first and second rounds without drafting a potential left tackle at all. And when we even had 3 picks in the second round on top of that, we used all 3 of those picks. None of them were left tackles. You had Johnny Newton, then Mike Sanderstill, then Ben Sinnott. And on top of the first round pick we spent on Jaden Daniels, we basically had 4 chances to take a guy, but instead we took quarterback, which was obviously the right move. That's what you were supposed to say second overall, but then defensive tackle and Johnny Newton, which a lot of people question, but now it looks genius, especially hindsight 2020. Jonathan Allen's out for season. Johnny Newton steps up and immediately has the best defensive tackle game we've had from any player on our team all season. And then we take a cornerback and then a tight end. Still no left tackle though, but even then, even though I didn't know that it would work out this well with Brandon Coleman, I was already happy that we were taking the best player available approach. I was still wondering, I don't know what we're going to do at left tackle. Maybe we get David Bakhtiari in training camp when we realize that we don't have an official left tackle that can start. Maybe we could give him a shot or something like that. Even when I didn't know that we had a left tackle yet, that we even had a potential left tackle that could turn into a franchise guy. Before we even drafted Brandon Coleman, I was still happy that we were going with the best player available approach. And I was saying during my draft coverage live stream that I didn't want to reach on any tackles that were available past pick 20, because I didn't feel like any of the ones that were left were worth taking with the second round picks that we had. None of them. I mean, I just felt like it was a huge drop off after mid to late first round to all of the rest of the tackles that were available after that. Just huge drop off. I mean, you had guys with maybe some ceiling to them, but were pretty raw, or had some injury concerns, or you just had guys that had a floor. They were going to be decent, but they didn't have much room to grow to get any better. You never expect those guys to turn into franchise Pro Bowl level guys. That was all that was left. You were either really talented but extremely raw, injury prone, or you were just all right. And I just felt like none of those guys that were left once we reached the second round were worth taking with that pick. So I'm very happy at Adam Peters for not forcing it, not reaching at need, taking best player available. And now look how that's working out for us with Johnny Newton, Mike Sanderstill, and Ben Sinnott starting to come up on his own. But again, I was cool with waiting until the third round. It is what it is. Don't reach on tackle just because you need one really bad. And we did need one really bad, but thank you for not reaching. And to be honest, that's probably what the other teams that were trying to rob you and trying to entice you to trade up and tax you for it, that's probably what they wanted you to do. so that we can end up having a worse draft because of it. And then they can say on the back end, haha, you should have traded up with us for a left tackle in the first round to protect your number 2 overall draft pick quarterback, your franchise quarterback. Now look at you type of thing. So I'm happy Adam Peters did not appease those people by, first of all, not trading up with them, not doing business with them and allowing them to take advantage of them, but also not reaching on a tackle looking desperate even after the fact. Not even just being spiteful to the point of, cut off your nose to spite your face type of thing. Just staying focused, being patient, and it'll just work itself out. And boy, it did. We're going to get there though. But now, look, I mean, when you really think about it, the rest of the NFL was really trying to strong arm the rookie general manager in Adam Peters, who was getting his first opportunity for calling the shots and everything like that. And I hope he notes that too. Like, I hope moving forward, he notes all of the people that tried to get him. But he's been finessing the NFL right back. The Jahan Dotson trade, the John Ridgeway trade. How about this recent Marshawn Lattimore trade? He's been in the Sam Howell trade in itself as well. He's been getting the NFL back big time for the way that they tried to do him in that draft, and I'm so happy. He's on a revenge tour right now. But either way, we finally do draft Brandon Coleman with the 3rd pick in the 3rd round. And I was really happy about the pick because I love this potential, but I also had some of the same concerns that everybody else had, but I just had them to a lesser extent, like with his rawness, especially with him playing a lot of guard his last season in college, or also his injury history of having to miss games in college quite a bit. But those questions, like, those were more so question marks for me, while as for other people, they were more so red flags. He's undraftable, or at least wasn't draftable in the 3rd round. I was cool with the 3rd round. I felt like that was a good spot for him. And it's crazy too, because the injury report did become a problem immediately in training camp. He missed like the entire preseason and all of that, missed most of training camp. So a lot of those people that, put red flags next to him for that weren't necessarily wrong, but I just felt like it was worth it. The injury history and the rawness that he came with, I felt like the talent and potential was well worth it. I mean, he missed joint practices, regular season practices, preseason games, a lot of the training camp. It was crazy. And that's a big concern, especially for a rookie who we hopefully project to start for us, especially when it still had a lot of rawness to his game as well. He was missing a lot of invaluable offseason practice time and reps to get ready for his transition from college to the NFL, especially playing for TCU. I mean, granted, they went against Georgia in the national championship, and then we mollywopped them the worst any bowl game is like historically ever. So it's just like that. He never really went up against a lot of tough competition either. It wasn't like he was playing the SEC or the Big Ten or anything like that. So that transition from college to the NFL was probably going to hit him harder than like a normal regular tackle like a J.C. Latham who played at Alabama, or even Joe Alt who played at Notre Dame. He played even higher levels of competition. But moving on in the offseason, we taxed former Giants offensive lines coach from their terrible 2023 offensive line to be the one to develop raw Brandon Coleman quick enough to be ready to protect our rookie offensive franchise quarterback as soon as possible. Remember, that's Bobby Johnson that we brought over from the Giants. The 2023 Giants offensive line looked terrible, but ever since he's been here, all offensive line's been great. So he's not the one to blame for what that Giants O-line looked like last year. That was more of a talent problem than a coaching problem. We could definitely see that once you do the scientific method, change some of the variables around. So we waited until, let's just rewind. We waited until the 3rd round to find a left tackle, which very rarely ever even works out because due to positional value, like I said, quarterback, edge rusher, tackle, with left tackle being the 3rd most important position in the entire sport, if anybody at that position is even halfway decent and shows any starting level potential, they normally would go way before the 3rd round. So it's already rare to find a 3rd round tackle that's even worth anything. And then on top of that, you had the scouting skills and ability to separate Bobby Johnson from the product on the field that the Giants gave you last year, and realize that Bobby Johnson was not the reason that the Giants O-line was the worst O-line in the NFL last year. And then it worked out beautifully. How? I'm done. I mean, I was never in the business of questioning Adam Peters and his decision-making skills, but especially taking a step back and realizing that we got a franchise left tackle in the 3rd round, and then your offensive lines coach was the offensive lines coach for the worst O-line in the previous season for the New York Giants, and the fact that that came together and somehow worked out better than anybody expected is insane, especially since they made sure they re-signed Cornelius Lucas to be able to start and split snaps with him the first few weeks to kind of give him time to develop at like a safer, slower pace. So So we didn't have to throw him out there to the Wolves immediately. Shouts out to the plan that Adam Peters and this team put together. But man, this guy, Brandon Coleman, is paying off big time. Got to give Bobby Johnson a lot of credit as well. But man, look at these couple of snaps from this Giants game. You can see Brandon Coleman circle. Shouts out to Ryan Fowler for providing these clips real quick. And this is just a quick 22 seconds of Brandon Coleman dominating elite edge rushers like Brian Burns, who used to play for the Panthers. Now he's with the Giants. And remember, going into this game, the New York Giants led the NFL in sacks. They walked away with this from this game not having any. I think Azeez Ojulari had like 5 sacks in the previous 3 games. Brian Burns was on a heater. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best defensive tackles in the entire NFL. That Washington Commanders offensive line with Brandon Coleman on it, and in playing his first full-time starting game, did not allow the Giants to get any sacks. I believe they only allowed like 5 pressures or something like that. And I do want to emphasize the fact that this was Brandon Coleman's first game fully starting. Of course, he missed the Panthers game due to a concussion. That's when he got hurt. Then he had to miss the Bears game because of that concussion. And then this was his first time returning to NFL level action in 2 weeks, mind you. But this is also his first time starting an entire game because Cornelius Lucas got hurt in the Bears game, and he and Brandon Coleman have been splitting snaps all season up until the second Giants game, where like the first few games Cornelius Lucas started, but Brandon Coleman would come in every now and then. Then at a certain point, Brandon Coleman took over and was technically the starter, but he and Cornelius Lucas still technically like split snaps almost in half. It was pretty much a 2 left tackle system. This was the first time that Brandon Coleman was ever a full-time starter at the NFL level, and he did his thing. So now for the clip, if you can see on the screen right now, I mean, you have Brandon Coleman bullying Brian Burns on that play, then again bullying Brian Burns on this play, then again bullying Brian Burns on this play. Good job, throw him to the ground as well. Good chip there, but still bullying Brian Burns right there. And then right here, bullying Azeez Ojulari, he's on the ground. These are elite edge rushers right here. Well, I wouldn't necessarily consider Azeez Ojulari, even though he's a Georgia Bulldog, an elite edge rusher, but he's a really good one. Again, he came into this game having 5 sacks in the previous 3 games, and then again, no Giants defender got a sack against us in that previous game just a couple of days ago, man. Shouts out to Ryan Fowler, because with those clips that I just showed you, he tweeted, Washington has their signal caller of the future in Jaden Daniels, but they also found their franchise left tackle Brandon Coleman in the same 2024 class. Heck of a day against Brian Burns and company, and what was the largest workload, 62 snaps so far this fall for the young man. Let's also point out some advanced stats from that Giants game. Again, Brandon Coleman's first time fully starting the entire game, playing more than like 30-something snaps in the game, and mind you, pretty much doubled that all the way to 62 snaps against the Giants. He had 27 pass blocking snaps. How about 0 pressures allowed and an 89.2 pass block grade? Nearly perfection right there. Shouts out to Brandon Coleman for that one, man. A ridiculous game on his end. So happy to have him. I mean, you take a risk and take a guy like that in the 3rd round. Absolutely amazing and beautiful. Shouts out to Adam Peters and even Bobby Johnson for getting them ready. Anthony Lynn, I'm pretty sure, has some impact on this. Shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury as well for designing an offense that protects some of the weaknesses that he may still have. Shouts out to him. And then also, if you want to go see the entire film session, because that was just 22 seconds of clips, I have an entire almost 9-minute worth of clips from Brandon Coleman. The film session ended up being like 20 minutes because I'm stopping, starting, rewinding, and things like that. If you want to go check that out, go become a channel member for those exclusive film sessions that I've been giving only them for free as channel members off to the side that nobody else can see. I did a long Brandon Coleman one literally just a few minutes ago from where I'm recording this video right now, so I wanted to make sure I was fully informed coming into this video. And of course, I gotta do something for my channel members that support me, man, so they get exclusive film sessions. Go become one if you want to see the extensive version of those clips and me breaking it down. But I also want to point out the fact that Brandon Coleman's improvement. It definitely improving right now. He has a 67.1 overall grade for the season, but his highest grade of the season was against the New York Giants, where he had a 78.6 offensive grade overall, a 70.6 run blocking grade, and of course, like I already said, an 89.2 pass blocking grade. I believe all 3 of those grades are the highest of this season so far. Yep, his overall grade against the Giants was the highest of the season. Run block grade, same thing, and then the pass blocking grade, same thing as well. Which means as he took on a full-time role, he only got better. Against the NFL's leading sack defensive line, he played his best game of his entire career so far. So I'm only expecting him to keep getting better and better because, again, if you're not a channel member, go become one. Go check out that film session because in that film session, I'm not going to sit here and act like it was a perfect game. He made some mistakes, which makes me so excited because he had that great of a game against the Giants, and there's still obvious things he needs to work on, which lets me know that he's only going to get better and better. But again, mind you, he has a 67.1 overall grade right now so far this season. Out of all of those tackles that were taken before him in the draft, rounds 1 and 2, Brandon Coleman is only behind one of them in overall grade so far this season, and that was the first one taken in Joe Alt from the Los Angeles Chargers, who was by many considered the best tackle in the entire draft. I don't think anybody had Brandon Coleman in their top 2. Well, right now he's playing like the second best tackle. Better grades than Talise Fuaga, better grades than J.C. Latham, Roger Rosengarten, DJ Glaze, Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton, Olu Fashanu, and Mike Gerald. Those are like the only tackles that have played enough to even get graded. And again, Brandon Coleman is second. So a lot of those tackles that were drafted before him haven't even played enough snaps to earn an actual grade from Pro Football Focus. And then everybody else other than Joe Alt is graded below him. Shouts out to Brandon Coleman, man. That's very impressive, man. Very impressive numbers. And shouts out to Joe Alt because he is balling right now. But the fact that we potentially ended up with the second best tackle in the entire draft class, we got him in the 3rd round after taking quarterback in the 2nd round and spending all of our 2nd round picks on defensive tackle, corner, and tight end, and we still found a way to come away with the second best tackle in the entire class. That is insane, man. Again, so out of all of the tackles drafted before him, 12 to be exact, only one of them is playing better than him right now, and that was the very first tackle taken in the draft, 5th overall in the 1st round, only 3 picks after Jaden Daniels. So, I mean, so if we're talking about value and like a draft pick and outperforming where you were drafted, Brandon Coleman is far surpassing even Joe Alt right now as far as arguably the biggest steal in the NFL draft or the most unexpected tackle. And even if you're looking at rookie performances from a non-quarterback, in week 9, you see Jackson Powers Johnson and Brandon Coleman are the only 2 offensive linemen on the entire list. Shouts out to my Georgia dog, Brock Bowers, at the top. I love seeing that. But my point is, Brandon Coleman out there being one of the best tackles in the NFL. They don't even have Joe Alt on this right now. Joe Alt has the better overall season grade, but he didn't have the better week 9 performance as Brandon Coleman. So shouts out to that one. Also, Dan Quinn even spoke on Brandon Coleman immediately on Monday after the game. When talking about rookie left tackle Brandon Coleman, he said, quote, "He very rarely repeats the same mistake," unquote. Coleman was very impressive in New York and has a huge game this week upcoming against the Steelers, TJ Watt and those guys. But my point is, I wanted to point out the fact that Dan Quinn said that he rarely makes the same mistake, and every time there's a player that a head coach says rarely makes the same mistake, those guys end up balling out. Because remember, Cameron Curl is a 7th round pick. An afterthought. We kind of just overlooked him as a rookie when most people did. I know I did. I did not see Cameron Curl, even though he didn't end up being as great as we hoped by the end of it. But like 7th round wise, Cameron Curl far outplayed his draft pick. Far outplayed it. Even now, he's way better than a 7th round pick usually is. So salute to him. But remember, people were saying, hey man, this boy Cameron Curl doesn't make the same mistake twice. And of course, with him being a 7th round pick, most of us were overlooking it like, yeah, I mean, you're just saying nice things about a 7th round pick. And then he turned out to be one of the better safeties in the NFL for a little while. He hasn't necessarily looked like that recently. So I think on the Rams he's on right now that he hasn't looked that good. But hey man, still far out surpassed the 7th round pick value that he was taking. Then you had Dan Quinn saying about Jaden Daniels throughout the offseason. And we're like, well, he's a rookie quarterback. We got to wait and see. He can't be that good the way that they're talking about him this offseason. And then not only was he that good, he was even better. And then now you have Dan Quinn saying the same thing about Brandon Coleman. And that's basically really, when you think about it, if you're in the anime or comic books, superheroes or whatever, like if you have a superpower where you never make the same mistake twice, you can't lose the same way twice. You know what I'm saying? That really makes you unstoppable, because eventually you just keep getting better and better and better until the point that you're just an unstoppable force. So if Brandon Coleman keeps that up, even if it's just folklore wise, or even if we're being realistic, Brandon Coleman is going to be a really good tackle for a long time. And just I mean, if you could walk away with a franchise quarterback and a franchise left tackle in the same draft, none of the other draft picks matter. That's already an elite draft. You could argue that you won the draft just off of that. And we're not even talking about Johnny Newton, Mike Sanford, Ben Sinnott, Luke McCaffrey, who's always open. I just can't wait for Jaden Daniels to see him more often. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is a 7th-round pick, was starting to show a lot of potential. And I can't wait for people to truly see what Jordan McGee can become once he starts to finally catch up to the NFL level and the game slows down for him. This draft is going to be legendary. It's going to go down in history. I'm pretty sure within a couple of years, people, even non-Commanders fans, are going to be looking back and like, yo, that draft was insane. And again, if you walk away with a franchise quarterback and a left tackle, the rest of the picks don't even matter. It's just extra on top of it that all of those other draft picks ended up being really good as well. But none more impressive than getting a franchise left tackle, the 13th tackle taken in the draft, in the 3rd round, and he turns out to be a franchise left tackle that can protect your franchise quarterback. And the fact that they were drafted in the same draft, so they're going to grow together, they're always going to play together, you know, God willing, they just stay together for the next 15 plus years, win us some Super Bowls as the left tackle and franchise quarterback tandem that came from the same draft. Come on now. I don't know how Adam Peters did it. I don't know how he finessed this situation. I'm pretty sure he didn't even see it turning out this good. I'm pretty sure when he took him in the 3rd round, he was thinking, well, maybe he can show signs of greatness, and then he'll actually be really good in his 2nd year, maybe his 3rd year. But the fact that Brandon Coleman already in the week 9, technically only his 7th game playing, his first full-time start, and already looking this good, he's exceeding everybody's expectations just as much as Jaden Daniels is right now. Very close. I would still give Jaden Daniels the edge, but of course he was a 2nd overall pick. Brandon Coleman was a 3rd round pick, man. We're talking about the still of the draft potential here. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned, follow the content. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you agree that Brandon Coleman was arguably the steal of the draft? I know it's early. I know it's hard to judge drafts, you know, anytime within 3 years or less. But right now, 3rd round, 13th tackle taken, I would argue that Brandon Coleman already looks like the steal of the entire 2024 NFL draft. But let me know how you feel about all of that. Of course, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. I really appreciate y'all. This was cool to finally do a video not talking about Marshawn Lattimore, so I wouldn't mess up and say Marshawn Lynch for once. So I'm really happy about that. But we're going to go ahead and move on. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like. I really appreciate y'all. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.